I never thought I'd learn about my own son's wedding from someone else. But that's exactly what happened. My name's William, and I'm 58 years old, a retired high school history teacher living in a quiet little house in Portland, Oregon. I thought I'd seen my fair share of life's ups and downs, losing my wife when my son Ethan was just a teenager, raising him on my own, scraping by to make sure he had everything he needed. But nothing could have prepared me for the phone call that turned my world upside down. It was a crisp November morning, the kind where the air smells like fallen leaves and coffee feels like a warm hug. I was in my kitchen, grading papers for a community college course I taught part-time, when my phone buzzed. It was an old friend, Clara, who lived down the street. Her voice was bubbling with excitement. "William, I had no idea Ethan was getting married." "The photos are stunning! You must be over the moon." I froze, my coffee mug halfway to my lips. "Married? What are you talking about, Clara?" There was a pause, and I could almost hear her confusion through the phone. "Oh, didn't you?" "I saw it on social media. Ethan and Lily. They got married last week. The pictures are all over her page. It looked like a fairy tale, William." My heart sank, heavy as a stone. I mumbled something to Clara, thanked her, and hung up. My hands were trembling as I opened my phone and found Lily's social media. There it was. My son Ethan, in a sharp black tuxedo, grinning ear to ear. Next to him, Lily glowed in a flowing white dress, her auburn hair catching the light. The venue was breathtaking. A glittering ballroom in a 5-star hotel, chandeliers sparkling, tables draped in silk. At least 60 people filled the background, all raising glasses, celebrating what looked like the event of the season. And me? I wasn't there. I wasn't even told. I sat there staring at the screen, my chest tight. Ethan, my only son, the boy I'd raised through every heartbreak, every triumph. He'd gotten married a week ago, and I found out from a neighbor. I tried calling him, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. My fingers shook as I scrolled through my contacts to find Lily's number. She picked up on the 4th ring, her voice cool, almost distracted. "Hey, William. What's up?" "What's up?" I could barely keep my voice steady. "Clara just told me you and Ethan got married last week. Why didn't anyone tell me?" There was a long pause, the kind that feels like it's swallowing you whole. Then Lily sighed, like I'd asked her about something trivial, like the weather. "Yeah, we got married. It was a small thing, you know, just the important people. We didn't want anyone who might, well, make the family look bad, make the family look bad." Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd taught Ethan how to make pancakes when he was 10, where we'd laughed over his terrible algebra grades, where I'd hugged him when he cried after his mom passed. And now, I was someone who'd embarrassed them. "Lily," I said, my voice cracking, "I'm his father." Another pause. "Look, William, it's not personal. Ethan just wanted everything to be perfect. Classy. We had my parents there, some of Ethan's colleagues, people from our social circle. It had to have a certain vibe. I wasn't good enough for their vibe. I thought about my life, my modest house, paid for with years of teaching kids about the American Revolution and World War II. My old Honda, reliable but hardly flashy. My wardrobe of button-ups and khakis, practical but not exactly red carpet material. I'd spent 30 years teaching, saving every penny to put Ethan through college, to buy him his first car, to help him when he said he was struggling. Honest work. A good life, but not good enough for their wedding. "Where's Ethan?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "He's out with some friends." The wedding planning was exhausting, and we're still recovering from the reception. It was at the Regency Hotel, by the way. Worth every penny, reception. A hotel I'd never even stepped foot in, while I was at home, probably watching reruns of history documentaries. My son was celebrating the biggest day of his life without me. After Lily hung up, I sat on my couch, staring at the photos Clara had mentioned. Ethan looked happy, truly happy. But in every single one of those pictures, his father was nowhere to be seen. A week later, my phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Hey, William, can you send the house payment? It's due soon," just like that. No apology, no explanation for the wedding, just a demand for money, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I'm sharing this story because I want you to know what it's like to feel like you've lost something you thought was unbreakable. Stick with me until the end, and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels, because what happened next, it showed me just how little I really knew about the son I raised. Sitting there on my couch, staring at my phone with that text from Lily asking for money, I couldn't stop my mind from wandering back. Back to the days when Ethan and I were a team, just the two of us against the world. I'm William, 58, a retired high school history teacher from Portland, and I raised my son alone after his mom passed when he was 14. Those were tough years, but they were our years. And now, learning he'd gotten married without telling me, it made me wonder when things had changed. When did the boy who used to tell me everything become a man who kept me in the dark? When Ethan was growing up, we were close. Real close. After his mom died, it was like the two of us built a little fortress to keep the grief at bay. I'd come home from teaching all day, exhausted, but I'd still find the energy to shoot hoops with him in the driveway. We had our rituals. Friday night pizza, arguing over who got the last slice, laughing until our sides hurt. I'd help him with his history projects, even when he groaned about memorizing dates. "Dad, why do I need to know about the Battle of Gettysburg?" He'd say, and I'd tell him, "Because it's about courage, Ethan, and you've got that in you." I worked hard to give him what he needed. Extra hours tutoring kids after school to pay for his college applications. A beat-up but reliable car when he turned 18 so he could get to his part-time job. I wasn't rich, far from it, but I made sure Ethan never went without. When he graduated college, I was there in the front row, cheering louder than anyone. He hugged me afterward, said, "Thanks for everything, Dad." That moment, it felt like every late night, every sacrifice was worth it. But then Lily came along. 3 years ago, Ethan met her at a networking event for his marketing job. She was polished, ambitious, the kind of person who walked into a room and owned it. At first I was happy for him. He seemed smitten, always talking about her big plans, her fancy friends. But slowly things started to shift. The calls from Ethan, the ones where we'd talk about nothing and everything, how to fix a leaky faucet, or what he thought of the latest basketball game, they got shorter. Then they stopped altogether. When I'd invite him over, he'd say he was busy or Lily had plans. I started noticing little things. Like the time I went to their apartment for dinner, about a year after they started dating. It was a sleek place downtown, way fancier than anything I could have afforded at Ethan's age. Lily showed me around, pointing out their granite countertops, their view of the city skyline. I made a joke about my old Formica counters at home, and she laughed, a sharp, cutting laugh. "Oh, William, you're so retro," she said. Ethan chuckled too, but he looked away like he was embarrassed. For me. That night, I tried to use their fancy coffee machine, some high-tech thing that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. I fumbled with the buttons and Lily smirked. "It's Italian, William." "You wouldn't get it." Ethan didn't say anything, just sipped his wine. I brushed it off, told myself it was just her sense of humor. But it wasn't. It was the start of a pattern. Over time, Lily's comments got bolder. My house needed updating. My car was practically an antique. My clothes? "You should let Ethan take you shopping, William. Get something more modern." Each jab was small, but they added up, like pebbles piling up until they blocked the sun. And Ethan, he didn't defend me. He'd just change the subject or laugh along, like it was easier to agree than to stand up for his old man. Looking back, I see it so clearly now. The way Lily steered every conversation, always talking about their new life, their big plans. She'd mention their friends from the club, or their trips to places I'd only read about in travel magazines. Ethan started echoing her, talking about image and networking, like they were the only things that mattered. I'd try to bring up old stories, our camping trips, the time we stayed up all night watching a meteor shower, and Lily would roll her eyes, say, "That's sweet, but we're focused on the future now." Ethan would nod, like he was signing on to a new version of himself, a version that didn't include me. I kept telling myself it was just a phase. Ethan was in love, trying to build a life. I didn't want to be the clingy dad who couldn't let go, so I let the distance grow. I stopped asking why he didn't call. I stopped noticing how he never invited me to their place, how I was never part of their important events. But that wedding, that was different. That wasn't just distance. That was a choice to leave me out of the biggest moment of his life. As I sat there, Lily's text still glowing on my phone, "Can you send the house payment?" I felt something shift inside me. Not just hurt, but anger. Anger at being treated like I didn't matter. Anger at myself for not seeing it sooner. I thought about all the years I'd poured into Ethan, all the love, all the sacrifices. And now, I was just a name on a bank transfer. Someone to call when the bills came due. I typed back, "What house payment, Lily?" Her reply came fast, like she'd been waiting. "For the apartment. It's due tomorrow. Just send it to Ethan's account." Just like that. No explanation, no apology for the wedding. Just a demand, cold and casual. I put my phone down, my hands shaking. I wasn't just Ethan's dad anymore. I was something else to them. Something I didn't want to name yet, but I knew I had to find out the truth. And what I'd discover in the days to come would break my heart all over again. And show me just how far my son had drifted from the boy I raised. That text from Lily, asking for the house payment like it was nothing, sat heavy on my mind. I'm William, 58, a retired history teacher from Portland, and I was still reeling from finding out my son Ethan got married without telling me. But that text, it wasn't just a request. It was a clue that something wasn't right. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped Ethan with his homework years ago, and started piecing things together. What I found out in the days that followed, it wasn't just about a wedding. It was about lies. Big ones. After Lily's message, I replied, "What house payment?" Trying to keep my voice calm in my head, even though my heart was racing. Her response came quick, like she'd been ready for it. "The apartment, William. It's due tomorrow. Ethan's been swamped, so just send it to his account. Same as usual. Same as usual." That phrase stuck in my throat. I hadn't even realized there was a usual. But then I started thinking back, flipping through my memories like pages in a book I hadn't read closely enough. Over the past 6 months, Ethan had called me with emergencies. At least that's what he'd called them. First it was in May. He sounded panicked on the phone. "Dad, my credit card's maxed out. I missed a couple payments and they're threatening to tank my credit score. Can you help? Just this once?" I didn't hesitate. I sent him $2,500 thinking I was saving him from financial ruin. Then, in June, it was a medical bill for Lily. Something about an emergency room visit. Another $1 and $200. In July it was car repairs. "The engine's shot, Dad. I can't get to work without it." That was $2,000. August, September, October. Each month a new crisis. A utility bill they couldn't cover. A temporary loan to tide them over. Always with a story, always with Ethan's voice soft and desperate saying, "I hate asking, Dad, but we're really stuck. I trusted him. He was my son. The boy I'd raised to be honest, to work hard like I had." So I sent the money. Every time. No questions asked. I'd dip into my savings, my retirement savings, the money I'd set aside for a new roof, maybe a trip to see the Grand Canyon someday. By the time Lily sent that text, I'd sent them $9,000 over 6 months. $9,000. from a retired teacher's pension. And now, here was Lily, acting like it was just another Tuesday, asking for more. I called Ethan that evening, my hands shaking as I dialed. He picked up, sounding distracted, like he was half watching a game. "Hey, Dad, what's going on?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Ethan, Lily just asked me for money for your apartment." "What's she talking about?" "I've been sending you money for months, credit cards, medical bills, car repairs." "What's this about rent?" There was a long silence, the kind that makes your stomach twist. Then he sighed, like I was making a big deal out of nothing. "Yeah, Dad, we've had some cash flow issues. The apartment's expensive. Lily's job doesn't cover everything, and I'm still looking for something stable. You've been helping with rent for a while now." "For a while?" My voice cracked. "Ethan, you told me that money was for emergencies. You said it was for your credit card, for Lily's hospital bill, for your car. Are you saying that was all rent?" Another pause. Then Lily's voice came through the phone, sharp and confident, like she'd been listening the whole time. "William, it's not a big deal. We just needed to keep things together. You know how important it is to have the right address, the right image. Ethan's trying to land a big marketing gig, and we can't do that living in some dump." Image, that word again. The same word she'd used when she explained why I wasn't invited to their wedding. I wasn't good enough for their image, not for their 5-star hotel reception, not for their fancy friends, and apparently not for the truth either. I sat there, gripping the phone, picturing my little house, my old Honda in the driveway, the life I'd built through years of teaching kids about integrity and hard work. And now my own son was lying to me to fund a lifestyle I didn't even recognize. "Ethan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "did you lie to me about what that money was for?" He didn't answer right away. I could hear him shifting, like he was trying to find the right words. "Dad, it's complicated. We were in a tough spot. You always said family helps family, right?" Family helps family. Those words stung because they were mine. Words I'd said to him when he was struggling to pay for college, when I'd stayed up late grading papers to cover his tuition. But this wasn't helping family. This was something else. I hung up and pulled out my bank statements, spreading them across the kitchen table. There they were, 6 months of transfers, and $500 in May, $200 in June, $2,000 in July, and more. I'd believed every story Ethan told me, every tearful call, every just this once. But then I started digging deeper. I remembered a photo Ethan had posted online, a weekend trip to Hawaii, the two of them sipping cocktails by the ocean. That was in August, the same month he'd asked for money for car repairs. I found another post, Lily showing off a new designer bag, time-stamped right after the medical bill I'd paid for. My stomach churned. They weren't struggling. They were living a life they couldn't afford, and I was footing the bill. The next day, I drove by their apartment building, a place I'd never been invited to. It wasn't just an apartment. It was a high-rise in the heart of downtown Portland, all glass and steel, with a doorman out front and valet parking. The kind of place where rent starts at $3,000 a month, maybe more. I sat in my car, staring up at those gleaming windows, and did the math. The $9,000 I'd sent? It wasn't even covering half their rent for 6 months. They weren't in trouble. They were chasing a lifestyle, and I was their safety net. When I got home, I called Ethan again. "I saw your apartment today," I said, my voice tight. "That's not a place you rent when you're struggling, Ethan. Why didn't you tell me the truth?" There was a long pause, and then Lily jumped in again, her tone sharp. "William, you don't understand. Ethan's building a career. We need to live in the right place, know the right people. You helped us keep that going. You should be proud. Proud of being lied to. Proud of being used. That night, I lay awake, the weight of it all pressing down on me. I'd raised Ethan to be better than this, to be honest, to work hard, to value family. But somewhere along the way, he'd chosen a different path, a path where his dad was just a means to an end. And what came next? It showed me just how far he was willing to go to keep that lie alive. I couldn't sleep after seeing that high-rise apartment. The image of it, glass and steel, valet parking, a life so far removed from mine, kept circling in my head. I'm William, 58, a retired history teacher from Portland, and I'd just learned my son Ethan and his new wife Lily had been lying to me for months. $9,000 of my retirement savings, gone to fund their luxury lifestyle, all under the guise of emergencies. And that text from Lily, demanding more money for rent like it was nothing. It was the last straw. I knew I had to face them. What happened next wasn't just a fight. It was the moment I realized I had to take back my self-respect. I waited a couple of days, trying to calm the storm in my chest. I didn't want to call Ethan again, not after how Lily had jumped in last time, talking over him like she was running the show. So I sent a text, short and simple. We need to talk. Come to my place tomorrow. 10 a.m. No question mark. I wasn't asking. Ethan replied with a quick, okay. And I spent the night wondering what I'd say to the boy I'd raised. The boy who'd become a stranger. The next morning, I heard the rumble of Ethan's car in my driveway, a shiny SUV that looked like it cost more than my annual pension. I stood by the window watching them get out. Ethan, tall and broad like he'd been as a teenager on the basketball court, but now dressed in a tailored jacket that screamed money. Lily, in a sleek coat and heels, her face tight with something I couldn't read. Annoyance, maybe. They didn't knock. Ethan used his old key, the one I'd given him for emergencies back when he was in college. The door swung open, and their voices filled my quiet house. "Dad, we're here," Ethan called, like this was just another visit. I walked into the living room, my hands stuffed in my pockets to hide how they were shaking. Ethan stood by the couch looking uncomfortable. Lily, though, she sat down like she owned the place, crossing her legs and fixing me with a cool stare. "So, William," she said, her voice smooth as glass, "Ethan says you're upset about the rent thing. Let's clear this up, like it was a misunderstanding, not a web of lies." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Lily, you asked me for money for your apartment. Ethan told me for months that the money I sent was for credit cards, medical bills, car repairs. $9,000 from my savings, and now I find out it was for rent. For an apartment I've never even been invited to. Why did you lie?" Ethan shifted, staring at the floor. Lily didn't flinch. "William, we didn't lie. We just simplified things. You're retired, you don't need the stress of our financial details. We needed help, and you helped. That's what family does, family." That word again, twisted into something I didn't recognize. Family doesn't lie, Lily. Family doesn't exclude their own father from a wedding and then ask him to pay their bills. Ethan finally looked up, his face flushed. "Dad, it's not like that." "The wedding? It was Lily's parents' thing. They paid for it, they called the shots. We didn't want to upset you." "Upset me?" My voice rose and I hated how it cracked. "Ethan, I found out from Clara, from a neighbor. You got married and I wasn't even a thought in your mind. And now you're standing here acting like I'm the one making this hard?" Lily leaned forward, her tone sharp now. "William, let's be real. The wedding had to look a certain way. Ethan's trying to build a career in marketing. We had clients there, investors, people who matter. It wasn't about you, wasn't about me." I felt those words like a knife. I looked at Ethan, waiting for him to say something, anything, to show he still saw me as his father. But he just stood there, hands in his pockets, avoiding my eyes. "Ethan," I said, softer now, "I raised you. I was there for every game, every heartbreak, every time you needed me. And you didn't think I deserved to see you get married?" He mumbled something about it being complicated, but it felt hollow, like he was reciting a script. Lily stood up, her voice rising. "Look, William, we're here because we need that rent money. Ethan's between jobs and my salary isn't enough. If we don't pay by next week, we could lose the apartment. You don't want that for your son, do you?" There it was, the guilt trip. I shook my head, feeling the anger bubble up. Lily, I saw your apartment. That's not a place you rent when you're struggling. That's a choice. And you made that choice while lying to me about what my money was for. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low but defensive. Dad, we're trying to build something. A life. You don't get how things work now. You've got to have the right address, the right look to get ahead. I stared at him, my son, parroting Lily's words. And what do I get, Ethan? For giving up my savings? For being left out of your life? What do I get? Lily answered before he could. You get to know you're helping your family. Isn't that enough? It wasn't, not anymore. I looked at them, standing in my living room, in the house I'd paid for with decades of teaching, of showing up every day for kids who weren't even mine. And I realized I was done. Done being their ATM, done being invisible. No more, I said, my voice steady for the first time. I'm not sending another dime. Not until you start treating me like family instead of a bank. Lily's face hardened. You're making a mistake, William. Ethan's your son. You have a responsibility to help us. What happens when you're old and need us? You think we'll be there if you cut us off now? The threat hung in the air, cold and sharp. I looked at Ethan, waiting for him to say she was out of line. But he didn't. He just stood there, silent, letting her words speak for him. That was the moment I knew I had to draw a line. I went to my desk that night after they'd left in a huff and wrote Ethan an email. I poured my heart into it, every hurt, every hope, every boundary I was setting. I love you, Ethan, I wrote, but I won't be used anymore. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be based on honesty. No more lies, no more demands. You're my son, but I'm done being your safety net. I hit send, my hands trembling. But my heart, it felt lighter, like I'd finally stood up for myself. What I didn't know was that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a truth I wasn't ready for. A truth about Ethan that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my son. I thought I'd felt every kind of hurt a father could feel. I was wrong. I'm William, 58, a retired history teacher from Portland. And I'd just drawn a line with my son Ethan and his wife. Lily, after learning they'd lied to me for months, using my retirement savings to fund their high-end lifestyle. $9,000 gone, while I was left out of their wedding and treated like a cash machine. Sending that email, telling them no more money, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. But what came next? It wasn't just another lie. It was a truth that broke what was left of my heart. A month after that confrontation, I was still trying to make sense of it all. I'd stopped answering Ethan's calls, ignored Lily's texts asking to talk things over. I needed space to breathe, to figure out who I was now that my son saw me as a means to an end. Then one rainy afternoon my phone rang. It was a number I recognized. Mrs. Carter, a teller at the local bank where I'd been a customer for years. Her voice was hesitant, like she wasn't sure how to start. William, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I found something you need to know about. Can you come by the bank? I drove over, my stomach in knots. Mrs. Carter met me in her small office, her face serious. She slid a folder across her desk. I was reviewing some accounts, and I noticed something odd with Ethan's. I shouldn't be showing you this, but you've been so good to us over the years, and I couldn't stay quiet. She opened the folder, revealing bank statements for an account in Ethan's and Lily's names. My eyes caught on the transfers, $500, $200, $2,000, the exact amounts I'd sent over the past 6 months. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. There was an email, printed out, tucked between the pages. It was from Ethan to Lily, dated back in April, before they'd started asking me for money. Lily, it read, we can't keep up with the rent on this place without help. Dad's got savings, and he's a soft touch. Tell him it's for credit card debt or something urgent. He won't question it. I've done this before with smaller stuff. He always comes through. Just keep it vague, and we'll split the cash with my other account. I read it again, my hands trembling. Ethan, my son. Not Lily, but Ethan planning it all. He wasn't just going along with her. He was the one pulling the strings, scripting the lies about credit cards, medical bills, car repairs. He'd called me, voice shaking, playing the desperate son, while behind my back, he was orchestrating it all. Mrs. Carter looked at me, her eyes soft with pity. There's more, William. Another email from last month. He was planning to ask you for $5,000 for a business startup. Said it'd be an easy sell because you'd feel guilty about the wedding. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. All this time I'd thought Lily was the one pushing Ethan, turning him into someone I didn't recognize. But it was him, my boy, the one I'd taught to tell the truth, to work hard, to value family. He was the one who saw me as a mark, a soft touch. I thanked Mrs. Carter, my voice barely a whisper, and drove home in a daze. The rain pounded my windshield, blurring everything, just like the truth was blurring the memories of the son I thought I knew. I couldn't let it go. I needed to hear it from him, so I texted Ethan, keeping it neutral. Meet me at the coffee shop on Belmont. Tomorrow, noon. Just you. He agreed, and the next day I sat in a corner booth, nursing a black coffee, watching the door. Ethan walked in, looking polished as ever, designer jacket, expensive watch. He slid into the seat across from me, his smile uneasy. Hey, Dad, what's this about? I didn't waste time. I slid a copy of the email across the table, the one from Mrs. Carter. His face went pale as he read it, but he didn't deny it. Ethan, I said, my voice low, you planned this. The lies, the money, all of it. You used me, your own father. He shifted, looking anywhere but at me. Dad, it's not what you think. We were in a tough spot. I learned it from guys at work, how to manage things. You know, make people want to help. Manage things? I leaned forward, my voice shaking. You mean manipulate? You wrote that email, Ethan. You told Lily how to play me. You made up stories about emergencies, knowing I'd believe you because you're my son. He finally met my eyes, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the boy I'd raised. But then he hardened, his jaw tight. Okay, yeah, I did it. But you don't get it, Dad. The world's different now. You've got to play smart to get ahead. I learned that from my friends, the ones with real money. They do this stuff all the time. Lean on family, bend the truth a little. It's not personal, not personal. My own son sitting across from me, telling me that lying to his father for thousands of dollars wasn't personal. I felt something crack inside me, like the last piece of hope I'd been holding on to. Ethan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, I raised you to be better than this. I gave you everything I had, my time, my money, my love, and you turned me into a bank account. He shrugged, actually shrugged, like I was being dramatic. Dad, we needed help. You had the money. What's the big deal? The big deal was everything. The big deal was the trust he'd broken, the love he'd traded for cash. I stood up, my coffee untouched. I'm done, Ethan. No more money. No more lies. If you ever want to be my son again, you'll have to figure out how to live with the truth. He tried to argue, his voice rising, but I walked out. The bell above the coffee shop door jingling behind me. That night, I called a lawyer. Not to sue Ethan, I could never do that, but to protect myself. To make sure my savings, my house, my future were safe from someone who'd already taken so much. As I hung up, I felt a strange mix of grief and clarity. I'd lost the son I thought I had. But I was about to find something else. Something I hadn't even realized I'd been missing. I thought the pain of losing my son would define me forever. But life has a way of surprising you. I'm William, 58, a retired history teacher from Portland. And I'd just faced the hardest truth of my life. My son, Ethan, the boy I'd raised with every ounce of my heart, had orchestrated a plan to use my retirement savings for his lavish lifestyle. $9,000, gone, built on lies about emergencies while he and his wife, Lily, left me out of their wedding and their lives. Walking away from that coffee shop, leaving Ethan with his excuses, I felt broken. But something else was stirring inside me, a quiet strength, a chance to rebuild, and that's where this story ends. Not in loss, but in something I never expected to find. The weeks after that confrontation were quiet. Too quiet. I didn't hear from Ethan or Lily, and I stopped checking my phone, hoping for a call that wouldn't come. I'd lie awake some nights, replaying that email I'd seen at the bank, Ethan's words calling me a soft touch. It hurt, deep and raw, like a wound that wouldn't close. But in that silence I started to see things differently. I'd spent years giving everything to Ethan, my time, my money, my love, thinking that's what fathers do. But I'd forgotten to give something to myself, respect. So I started small. I joined a book club at the local library, something I'd always meant to do but never had the time for when I was teaching. The first meeting, I was nervous, sitting in a circle of strangers, clutching a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. But then we started talking, about Atticus Finch, about justice, about life, and I felt something shift. These people, most of them around my age, weren't just discussing a book. They were sharing their stories, their losses, their hopes. One woman, Margaret, a retired nurse, told me over coffee after a meeting, "William, you've got a kind heart. Don't let anyone make you feel small for it." Her words stuck with me, like a lifeline. I started spending more time with the book club folks. We'd meet for coffee, go for walks in the park, even plan little outings to museums. For the first time in years, I was laughing again, real laughter, not the polite kind I'd forced when Ethan and Lily made their subtle jabs. I started a blog too, nothing fancy, just a place to write about the lessons I'd learned, the ones I wished I'd taught Ethan better. I wrote about honesty, about boundaries, about how family isn't just blood, it's the people who show up for you, who see you for who you are. People started reading it, leaving comments, sharing their own stories of setting boundaries with loved ones. I wasn't alone anymore. A year passed, and I heard through a neighbor that Ethan and Lily had split up. Their divorce was messy, from what I gathered. Ethan had moved to Seattle, chasing another big opportunity that probably wouldn't pan out. Lily was back in Portland, working a lower-paying job after their lifestyle caught up with them. I didn't feel joy hearing that, not exactly. It was more like sadness for what could have been. I'd raised Ethan to be honest, to work hard, to value the people who loved him. But somewhere along the way, he'd chosen a different path, one that led him away from me, and I had to let him go. I kept busy, though. I volunteered at a community center, teaching history workshops for seniors. I'd stand in front of a room talking about the Civil War or the Great Depression and see their eyes light up, the same way my students used to. I made friends, real friends, the kind who'd call just to check in, who'd invite me to dinner not because they needed something, but because they enjoyed my company. One day, at the community center, a man named Tom, a retired mechanic, clapped me on the shoulder and said, "William, you're family to us here." Family. That word again, but this time it felt right. It felt true. Looking back, I've learned something I wish I'd known sooner. Family isn't about who you're tied to by blood. It's about who respects you, who shows up with honesty, who values you for more than what you can give. I spent years thinking my job as a father was to keep giving, no matter the cost. But I was wrong. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back. Let the people you love face the consequences of their choices, even if it hurts. Even if it means letting go of the son you thought you'd always have. I'm 59 now, and I'm happier than I've been in years. Not because I have everything I want, but because I have what I need. Self-respect, friends who care, a life that feels like mine again. I still think about Ethan sometimes, wondering if he'll ever find his way back to the boy I raised. But I don't wait for him anymore. I've built a family, not the one I was born with, but the one I've chosen. And that's enough, so I want to hear from you. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Have you ever had to set a boundary with someone you loved? Drop a comment below and let me know what city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story's reached. And if you're looking for more, check out the 2 stories on the final screen. They're favorites from the channel, and I think they'll surprise you. Thanks for listening to my story. It's been a long road, but I'm glad I walked it. Life lesson. Sometimes, the hardest but kindest thing you can do is say no to someone you love. Boundaries aren't just about protecting your heart. They're about teaching others what it means to truly care. Family isn't defined by who you're born to, but by who chooses to stand by you with honesty and respect. Hold on to your self-worth because it's worth more than any amount of money you could ever give away.